I'm going to rank the danger of the major leg locks in Jiu-Jitsu. I'm going to assess danger based on the window you have between feeling pain and something actually breaking, how catastrophic an injury would be, and how unusual the setup is for the submission. I'm going to rank each lock between F tier and S tier. There's only going to be 2 S tier locks in the rankings. I'm going to start with the straight ankle lock because it's typically the first leg lock submission that we all learn. In terms of the window you have between feeling pain and something breaking, typically that window is going to be quite wide. When most people apply straight ankle locks, you will have a gradual increase in pain before anything breaks. If you don't tap, the lock will primarily damage the ATFL ligament in the ankle. In rare cases, you might see damage to the Achilles tendon or even a fracture in the bones of the lower leg. But generally speaking, you're going to have plenty of time to tap, and if damage does occur, it's normally going to be ligament damage. In terms of the setup, it's normally very easy to see a straight ankle lock coming. Most people will set it up from single leg X or a straightforward leg entanglement. So taking these 3 criteria into account, we're going to give the straight ankle lock a rating of D. It is worth noting that the straight ankle lock has been seen some innovation in how it is technically applied. This is largely due to Mateusz Szczecinski, who has came up with a variant called a shotgun ankle lock. In this variant, the submission comes on a lot quicker and it's far more likely you're going to see serious damage. So if you can apply a straight ankle lock like Mateusz, we're going to give that a rating of B. Next one on the list is the Aoki lock. The Aoki lock is pretty much a variant of the straight ankle lock where you get slight exposure of the heel on the ribs. This slight adjustment makes the lock far more dangerous. The rotational aspect of the Aoki puts intense torque pressure on the knee. This submission comes on a lot quicker and narrows the window you have between feeling pain and something breaking. Ligaments in both the knee and the ankle are at risk. In the knee, the main ligament that will be damaged is the MCL, but the ACL can also be torn. In the case of severe tears, these injuries can put you out for a year plus and also might require surgery. In terms of the setup, an opponent will typically start with the straight ankle lock and adjust to the Aoki by slightly exposing the heel. The setup is not super complicated, but it can be tricky to see your opponent adjusting to the Aoki. We're going to give this an A rating because it can come on quickly and it can also cause serious damage. Next on the list is the Estee lock. This lock quickly applies rotational pressure onto the ankle by trapping it against the body. The Estee lock also comes on very quickly and the window to tap is very narrow. This lock mainly targets the ankle. In terms of the setup, opponents will typically just jump on this submission. With all this being taken into consideration, we're going to give the Estee lock a rating of A. Another submission which applies similar forces to the Estee lock is the toe hold. In the toe hold, a Kimura type grip is used to apply rotational forces on the ankle. With the toe hold, there's typically more room to tap. However, some people do rip it on and it can quickly end up in injury. With the toe hold, the first thing to break are the ATFL ligament and CFL ligament in the ankle. In severe cases, the toe hold can result in a bone fracture, with the bones in the lower leg and the ankle being at risk. Nicky Rod managed to break Gordon Ryan's foot by ripping on this submission in a UFC Fight Pass match. In terms of setup, it can be tricky to see when someone's going for a toe hold as their head is typically going to be where your feet are. But you can generally feel when someone begins to establish grips on your feet. Overall, we're going to give this one a B rating as some people do tend to rip it on. The next one we're going to cover is the knee bar. Similar to the arm bar, the knee bar works by hyperextending a joint. Because the knee bar is attacking some of the strongest muscles in the body, you will typically have a lot of room to tap. If you don't tap, the injury can be really severe. The first thing to break will be the major ligaments in the knee. If it keeps being extended, blood vessels, nerves, and bones are all at risk. In terms of the setup, the knee bar can be set up from a lot of different positions and in creative ways. Although you might not see it coming, you're definitely going to realize once it's on. We're going to give the knee bar a rating of B. Although the break is going to be quite severe, you will typically have plenty of time to tap. Next on the list is the calf slicer. The calf slicer is a compression lock which crushes the calf muscle against the shin bone. In this one, you're going to feel a lot of pain before anything breaks. In terms of damage, muscle tearing in the calf is the most likely injury. If it keeps being applied beyond that, an ACL tear becomes likely. In terms of setup, the calf slicer can also be set up in a lot of different ways. Similar to the knee bar, it's going to be very clear once it's on. Overall, we're going to give this a rating of C. Typically, I have a lot of time to tap and it's not as severe as the knee bar in terms of breaking. The next submission on the list is the banana splits. In the banana splits, you're pretty much forced into an extreme splits position. It's gonna feel like an intense stretch and you'll generally have a lot of time to tap. If you don't tap and your opponent has the strength to stretch you to breaking point, you're most likely gonna damage your adductor muscles. If it keeps being extended beyond that, the lower back, knees and hip are all at risk. Similar to the calf slicer and knee bar, the banana splits can be set up from a variety of positions and it can be difficult to see coming. Once again, it's going to be very clear once it's on. Overall, we're going to give the banana splits a rating of D. You have a lot of time to tap and it's generally hard to stretch somebody to breaking point. A leg lock video wouldn't be complete without covering heel hooks. Heel hooks are generally considered to be the boogeyman of submissions. While they used to be relatively niche and even frowned upon, they've essentially become a necessity to learn. We're going to split the heel hook into both the inside heel hook and outside heel hook variants. The inside heel hook applies rotational forces on the foot, which primarily targets ligaments on the inside of the knee. It can come on extremely quickly and cause catastrophic damage to the knee. You typically won't feel a lot of pain before things start breaking, and the window to tap is very small. The lock will put severe pressure on the ACL, making it the most likely to tear. However, the MCL is also likely to be injured. Other ligaments in the knee, such as the PCL and LCL, can also tear, and the meniscus is also at risk. Essentially, the whole knee is at a risk of being injured, and the ankle joint as well. In terms of setup, it can be very difficult to see coming. It can be set up in a lot of different ways and people tend to jump on it in competition. The inside heel hook definitely deserves an S tier rating. The outside heel hook operates with different dynamics. In the outside heel hook, the foot doesn't cross the body. Because the foot is on the outside of the body, there's typically more space to move and potentially escape. You will also generally have more of a window between feeling pain and something actually breaking. With the outside heel hook, depending on how it is applied, ligaments in the ankle might start tearing before those in the knee. In terms of the knee, the LCL is primarily at risk, but the ACL may also tear. The outside heel hook can also be set up in a lot of different ways. However, it will generally be a little bit more straightforward than the inside heel hook, given that the foot does not cross the body. Given that the breaks can be quite severe and that this submission can also come on quite quickly, we're going to give this one an A rating. And I've saved one of the nastiest leg locks for last. While heel hooks have generally become common knowledge, this submission is only known by a small percentage of practitioners. It is very difficult to see coming, it comes on extremely quickly, and it can pretty much explode your knee. This submission is the Z-lock. The Z-lock is essentially a lateral knee bar. The knee doesn't have much room to move laterally, so even a small movement can result in ligaments tearing. The MCL is at the most immediate risk of tearing, but the ACL is also at huge risk. If applied quickly, the Z-lock can also fracture bones around the knee joint. With the Z-lock, you should often tap as it is being set up, as once it's being applied, there is very little room to tap. It is typically set up by establishing a reaping position and moving the opponent's leg from cross ashy to diagonal ashy. Once the leg starts moving across the center line, the reaping pressure will almost immediately start applying lateral pressure on the knee. Joseph Chen executed a huge break on Derek Rayfield's knee, when he applied this submission in his Who's #1 debut. This one undoubtedly deserves an S tier. I consider this to be the most dangerous submission in Jiu-Jitsu, and I always tap when it's being set up. I'm not a physio, I'm not a medical professional, but I try to assess these as objectively as possible. If you disagree with any of the rankings, or I missed out on any leg locks, please drop them in the comments below.